So, one of the biggest challenges in warehouse management is tracking items that are coming back in off of job sites and trying to make a determination as to what needs to happen with that inventory record that's coming back. So, a lot of times an installer will bring something back because of a job overage. It's the wrong material. Maybe it was a flawed, something was damaged, or it simply just had to be rescheduled. So there's all these reasons why things would come back. And the warehouse manager at least needs to have a way to temporarily track these things. And maybe ultimately the warehouse manager doesn't know what to do with that inventory record. So does the job need to be credited back? Does it need to become a brand new inventory record? There's a lot of information that needs to transpire with that, and warehouse manager may not be the one to make the decision. Maybe a salesperson or a project manager needs to make those decisions. Same thing with items that are leaving the warehouse. Typically, like sundry items, staples, nails, glue, patch, those types of things that an installer will take for a job, and that needs to be tracked so that, again, a project manager or a salesperson can make a determination whether or not that needs to be costed back to the job or what needs to happen with that. So there's a lot that moves around in a warehouse, and things that come back in and things that quickly leave are items that need to be tracked. So that's what we came up, or why we came up with the quick return and the quick picks area. It's exactly to do that. So as we look at this list, this is the quick return list, and then I can toggle over to the quick pick. So these are everything leaving the warehouse, like those staples, glue, patch, and then everything coming back in, like something that was an overage or wrong material or a damaged item. So somebody has to make a decision once there's an entry here. The warehouse manager enters that item of what to do with this item. And so they kind of have to say, okay, here's a list of things that need to be attended to. And then the person that needs to attend to it goes in there and does that very same thing. So let me just show you how to add a new entry here. So you'll notice in the new entry, there's these little stars in the fields that are required. And there's a number of them. And maybe you have all the information that you need. Maybe you know the inventory number of the item coming back in, or maybe you only know the work order number. Maybe the installer said, "Oh, I don't. It's just work order number 4310." Well, if you have a piece of information or all information, and typically the inventory number is going to give you everything, but maybe you only know the work order number. Well, when you enter that, it'll at least backfill the job number and the side mark. So you at least have that information. And then you can go in, maybe you have the information off the side of a box, or you know what it is. You can type it in manually. And color red, coming back into the warehouse that you're in. You can add a note if you want. If you know the manufacturer, you can add that in. These things are not required, only the fields that have stars in it. So how much is coming back in? What's the unit of measure on it? And is it going back to the job site or not? So we can just say no, it's not going to the job site. And as soon as you fill all of those required fields in, you can hit finish and it adds the entry. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, because let's just say this is all I really knew about this item. So now I add this item, and it's the same item that was in the list, so I'm just kind of repeating what was already here. At this point, I can click AirPrint, and I can print off a temporary label, and that will have the quick return number on it, so that I know, oh, I never really dealt with this item, or it's still sitting in the list. Or maybe a salesperson is the one that's having to kind of look through to see what needs to happen with this item, and they can go ahead and see that there's a quick return number on it. They can go find the item in the warehouse with the warehouse manager to say, oh, that's for this job, or that came from this inventory record. Who knows? There's a variety of things that you need to determine with these things. So let's say Bonnie is a salesperson, which she is, and she's trying to make a determination of what needs to happen with this. And so she makes the determination, and then she marks the item as completed. So now the warehouse individual can come back in and say, okay, this one's completed and done. And as soon as they see that it's completed, they can print off either a new label, and they'll only be able to print off like the inventory label if there's a valid inventory number that was put into the field. So let's say Bonnie did determine that the inventory record number that this came from that needs to be returned back to is 10158. And when you do that, you'll notice that the AirPrint button and the queued label button turns blue, because now it's seeing this is a valid inventory record number, so you can actually print off a new label for that. And when the install or the warehouse manager prints off the label, it marks the item as printed. And what happens is it falls off the list, and you can only kind of go deliberately find printed items. Now you can kind of go through and filter through the list, but you'll notice that when I return out here and then come back, that one that was listed as printed, which is essentially we've dealt with you and you're done and completed, it falls off the list. But I can find that item again if I want by toggling through, and I can toggle through completed items, incomplete items, and all, because as these lists grow, you'll need to be able to filter down to what you want to see. But I could also go into the filter here and I could find status printed, apply, and we'll find the one that I just did, which was entered in here today. So it's this one at the very top. So I wanted to show you this because this is really interesting. Now, we could, at any point in time when an item gets entered, and let me go back to the list here. Oops. Let me go back to this one. Let's just say that this one, oh, I entered this twice, my mistake. I can go ahead and click void on this one and just say entered twice. So what you're seeing here is this item is marked as voided, and you'll notice that there's really no way to delete it. So we wanted items to only be void and not deleted. Now, voids you have to go deliberately find, but if you're auditing something to see why something was voided out and what the reason for it was, if you go to the original entry icon here, it tells you why it was voided, who it was voided by, and what date and what time it was voided by. The other thing that's very interesting here as well is that you'll notice that if I type in, let me go back to the one that had the real inventory number on it that we completed, which is here. You'll notice that all of this information is filled in. It wasn't filled in fully because we didn't have all the information when we did the new entry. But when we put in the inventory number, it filled in all the missing information. If you ever wanted to know how this was originally filled in, when the warehouse manager did it, you just go to the original entry and it'll show you what was filled in when it was first created. And so you never really lose that information because when you link it up to an inventory record, you want to make sure that you have the old way that it was entered to identify it, and of course the new stuff feeds in from the real inventory record, so you have that information. You can print it off. So that is really what you do. You add the entry, someone makes the decision about what needs to be done with it. Of course, you can print off a temporary label to just label the item, and then once something's linked up to an inventory record, if you need to print a new label off, as a warehouse manager, you just find the items that are completed, and your list of completed items will come in. Let me see if I can just quickly find one real quick and mark it completed so you can see what that looks like. So if I go to printed and I just mark these back to a completed status, you'll see right away, okay, here's all of them in the list, so that would show everything completed or incomplete. Then if you said show me just the completed and the incompletes, you can kind of quickly toggle through. And again, as you get a lot of entries here, you want to use that toggle because it quickly helps you get to what you're looking for. Of course, you have this full filter too. You can look for things by inventory number, job number. I mean, you can really filter out and dial in exactly what you want to see. And then, of course, if you're a salesperson logging into this list, it's going to filter it to your items only, and anything that isn't assigned to a salesperson, it'll show that for everyone, because someone might see it in the list and say, oh, that's mine, and then they can assign their name to it, should there be an entry that was there that didn't have a salesperson name, because sometimes you have tons of information, sometimes you have very little information. Another thing that's really awesome here is it gives you the ability to do a find, and you can find on any of this information of an item that may be in this list. So you really have everything at your fingertips. Of course, if you're restricted to certain warehouse information, or if you have restrictions that way, it's going to by default find based off of your warehouse if you have a restriction, but you can definitely find other warehouses if you want. It doesn't keep you from finding it. It just tries to help you filter down to only yours. There's all kinds of security parameters that you can allow someone to be able to void, but you can disallow somebody from unvoiding. And then, of course, not just anybody can mark an item complete. If you don't want them to complete an item and you want other people to have that control, then you can dial that in, and that was covered in the settings video. You know what? Let's just go there real quick, and I'll show you that. If we go into personnel entry, we'll find Bonnie real quick. There she is. Go to access levels, and you'll notice here, this is what these entries are here for. So allow quick list user completion and unvoid. So if someone is checked here on this, then they can mark it completed and they can unvoid an item if you choose to give them the power to do that. So again, that's your decision, up to your discretion of who you want to have that kind of authority, whether it's a salesperson, project manager, or the warehouse manager. That is your choice. The other thing I wanted to show you is when you're hitting a new entry, you can add an image. So if you wanted to take a quick picture from the iPad, if you click image, it starts up the camera. You can take that picture. If you forgot to do an image at any time, you can go to an item, click the original entry, and you can say add image, and again, it'll start the camera up and give you the ability to take a picture. So you can do it upon new entry, or you can add it later if you choose to. And when an item is marked completed, it asks you if it's tied to an inventory record, if you want to take those pictures you took and blend it in with the original inventory record. So if it recognizes images, it should give you that message and ask if you want to blend any of those images you took to the inventory record. In this case, it would be 10158. Of course, you can queue all the completed ones. So if warehouse managers coming in, looking at the things that people have completed on the list, and they need to print labels off, they can say, show me all the completed items. They can say, let me just tie this one to an inventory record. I'll just tie it to the one above. It's fine, just as an example. They can say queue completed. It'll queue those up, and then they can hit the print list up here and just print all those off at one. Save it as a queued list later. You get all the same flexibility as the other areas. And that is pretty much it. It's just a trackability way of doing it, and to be able to look at the original entry information. So that is quick return. Very simple process, simple concept. Quick pick is very similar. You can do a new entry. So let's just say someone is taking this item, or you can scan it. I'm going to manually enter it in. It's going to be the same one we've been working with. And you can go ahead and say how much are they taking. They're taking 50 of these. And you can get a signature from them. And you can also add an image to see what they're taking, or if you want to take a picture of the person that's taking it. Of course, you can add notes, and once all that information is in, you absolutely need to put and record the installer name. So without the installer name, you will not get the finish button here, because you need to know who took it, so that that can be audited if someone has questions. And I can hit finish to that, and then of course I can also click into here, and if I forgot to take a picture or get a signature, I of course can come back into the original entry and sign it. If you didn't know all the things about what they were taking, of course you can just, if you didn't have a label to scan or what it is, you could have just filled in what you did know. So again, you fill in the required fields, and you can go back to that later and line it up with the real inventory record, so that you can print off a label, mark it complete, print a label off, because they have changed the amount of inventory that's available for that item by taking it. So that is the quick pick area. So same concept, same entry, still can do the find functions. You do have a quick pick number that can be printed off if you wanted to just do a quick print off to remind you of something later. I doubt people will click AirPrint here on the quick pick area. It'd really be more about filling in the real inventory label. Once that item is completed, you can print that information off and get that done. Void is the same. There can be a reason for the void. You have to have a reason for the void. It tracks the date and time. All of that is there. Printability is there. Findability is there. Let me just see if there's anything else. So we went through the filtering. Anytime something is filtered by a certain category, it's always going to make the filter red so that you know you are in a filtered status. Like here, when I come in, it's automatically filtered to the user, Bonnie, and whatever her warehouse restrictions are by default. Again, you can clear those filters out and you can view more information if you want to. It's just an effort to help the user see what they need to see. Okay, that is a basic overview of the quick pick and quick return area, and how you use it to track it, and how you complete your items off the list, and how you can link it back to an inventory number.